Hello, everyone. Andy Core here. It is live on a Friday, March 25th. I'm very excited that you're here. I am still setting things up. We got another 20 or 30 seconds before the actual kickoff. But please, if you have any comments or questions, if there's anything that you want to ask or include, just say, hey, Andy, what about this? And I'll go, whatever, man. No, I'll be happy to answer it as best I can. All right. So hopefully this is working. You never know with live stuff. Let's see. Okay. So I'm going to pull up another window here. Just getting set up. All right, so it looks like we are live. Very good, very good. All right, so I'm looking at making sure that we've got everything set, and we're set. Okay. All right, so. Yeah. Well, it looks like my live froze. Me doing a look like a Southern Baptist preacher there. All right. Weird. Ronald's on. Yes. Ronald, thank you for joining. I love it. Ronald, has my screen frozen or no? It takes more than a little technical difficulties to stress out a stress speaker. Oh, Ronald, thank you. Awesome. Okay, good. Well, since we're good, we're going to go, man. I am very excited about what I'm sharing today. Sometimes the best way to solve a current problem or look at solutions to current problems or to better understand a current problem is to look back. Historically, has similar situations happened? Is there things that we can learn about what did or did not work? And so I oftentimes will look back into the research for historical insight. So I did that because of the current pandemic we're in and the challenges that we face. There is a little bit of new research on how the pandemic is affecting us, but most of that research is probably in process right now, not yet published. So I thought to myself, are there other times that we've had significant societal issues? And the easiest one for me to look back at was the 2008 Great Recession. And in that time period, as you might expect, there was a lot of stress and a lot of people that were really contemplating, should I continue working in this job? Should I continue working in this profession? And again, it was a very challenging time. As a matter of fact, I've been doing some research on financial advisors, and I found that there was a high rate of PTSD, diagnosed moderate to high levels of PTSD in financial advisors during the 2008-2009 Great Recession. It was a big deal for many people. And another group that was a really big deal for is entrepreneurs. People who have their own business or work in a smaller business to where they're really connected with the viability of the business. So I found this one particular study that it just really opened my eyes to what can help us right now. Let me take you to the flip chart here, because what I want to show, I'm going to ask you basically, what do you think causes people, let's just say entrepreneurs, to want to quit their job? What causes people to have significant anxiety or depression, symptoms of depression? In the 2008-2009 Great Recession, what were the top causes? Okay, well, researchers found for sure that Okay. Economic stress was by far one of the biggest deals. So economic stress is actually, there's a ton of research to show that economic stress is one of the most significant job related stressors. When there's an economic in the economic world, if there's some real difficulties, that's been shown to be a significant challenge for many, and not only entrepreneurs, employees, nonprofits. It's a big deal, obviously. All right. So researchers were wondering though, does economic stress lead to people wanting to leave their job? And so most people would say, well, yeah, especially entrepreneurs, if they're having a lot of stress, then it's a big deal. Economic stress can make entrepreneurs want to quit their business, quit the job that they're doing, do something else, or even leave their profession or career entirely, which is a terrible thing for most people. And okay, so a group of researchers gathered a bunch of entrepreneurs together and they assessed them first on how big is your rating of economic stress. Let's just say 1 to 10. All right. And then they asked them, what are your chances? What is your intention to leave your job? Okay. So let's just say a 1 to 10. And what they found is that the people that had high economic stress had a much higher chance, or had a much higher intention of leaving their job. Makes sense, right? Okay, well, here's where it gets crazy, because the researchers were like, we can guess that economic stress would lead to leaving the job. But what they were thinking, why? Why does that happen? Okay, so let me erase this. So now we're going to do it like this. All right, so we're going to say economic stress. Does economic stress cause depression symptoms? And does depression symptoms lead to, hey, Lisa's on the chat. Lisa, you're awesome. I haven't got to catch up with you in a long time. Thank you for being here. Lisa's a super cool person, by the way, everybody. Okay. All right. So does economic stress lead to depression, which then leads to quitting your job? Quit. Okay. And so here's the thing. They found that, yes, economic stress does make entrepreneurs more depressed, and that makes them feel discouraged, disheartened. They start to feel less confident in themselves. They start to feel less confident in their ability to be able to manage the situation that they're in. Okay, and this is a big deal, because this connection between economic stress and depression, because what happens often is what's called the learned helplessness loop. And what that means is that you start to, economic stress creates a sense of uncertainty, change, anxiety, stress. And then if that continues, then that can lead to depression, depressive symptoms. And then if that continues, that can lead to a reduced confidence in your ability to handle situations, which then that reduced confidence oftentimes lead people to feel, disheartened or like lost, and that makes them want to quit what they're doing and do something else, which then actually completes that learned helplessness cycle, because then all of a sudden you start to get into this rhythm of abrupt change. Stress, depression makes me feel down, which then makes me feel less confident, which makes me act less, be less proactive, more procrastinate, more fear-based, which then makes me over time feel despondent, which makes me want to quit, which then reduces your ability to manage stressful situations. Okay, and so that's what the researchers found. They found that economic stress led to this depressive symptom, this learned helplessness cycle, which then led to them, they're in higher intention to quit their job or leave their business or leave their career entirely. Okay, so that's the depressing part, right? But I am a motivator, and I would not bring this to you if that was the end of the story, because that's depressing, okay? The researchers they studied one more thing. They studied how much economic stress, let me actually change this up here. Okay, they looked at economic stress, they looked at depressive symptoms. So how much is economic stress affecting you? Does that make you feel depressed, down, reduce your confidence? And does that increase your intention to quit? Okay, but they studied one more thing, and that was what I call prosocial connection. I'm going to write this out here in a second, okay? So what prosocial connection is prosocial connection is the amount of time, the amount of interactions you have with people who do jobs or businesses or work or industries similar to yours. Basically peers. They can be direct coworkers, but they can be other people within an association or a mastermind group. But how often do you connect with those, what I call prosocial connections, professional social connections? Okay, so how often? And that was the other thing they measured. And here's what they found, is they found that people with, let me redo this whole thing. Okay, so what they found was that people with high levels of economic stress did indeed have higher depressive symptoms, and it did increase their intention to quit. In everyone that had a low amount of prosocial connection. So if you connected with, if you're the amount of time that you connect with people who do your professional social connections is low, then this was true. That prosocial connection was low. Yes, Lisa, it's a bad cycle. We got to break the cycle, and that's where we're going next. Because here's the deal. I got to change this color, man, just for dramatic effect. Okay. So what the researchers also found was those that with high levels of pro-social connection, it interrupted this pattern. That's bad. It broke this pattern. So here's the crazy part, okay? So those with high levels of the amount, okay, so what's prosocial connection? It's meeting with, talking with people that are your professional and social connections, okay? And how often you do that. So the people that did that often during and after the 2008, 2009 Great Recession, they said, yeah, I mean, this Great Recession has increased my economic stress for sure. Did it lead to increased depressive symptoms? Actually, it decreased their depression symptoms. Those with high levels of connection, they connected a lot with people. People that had high levels of frequently connecting with their peers and social professional connections actually had a reduction in depressive symptoms, and crazy enough, a reduction in the intention to quit. They were more determined to stay and work through the challenges. Now, I love this because this clearly shows something I think that's super important, is that when you're stressed, we think that that's going to cause an automatic reaction. And it doesn't have to. There are aspects of how we think and how we arrange our lives that can basically interrupt this and create a completely different reaction. And that's what we're talking about today, is this study identified for us something that helps us, man, if there's lots of uncertainty. It's a little bit risky for a guy from Arkansas to spell live, but I'm going to do it for you. Okay. Uncertainty. You start to have lower confidence. You can have increasing workload. I mean, all these factors can basically come back to you. It can actually, this study shows that you can turn that into a proactive force, a motivator. And I know you've heard that before, tons, that's you can turn stress into a motivator. Well, this shows that this is actual proof and an interesting example. Because here's the thing, do you think pro-social connection is more important now than it was in 2008, 2009, 10, and 11? What do you think? People put it in the chat box. Do you think the amount of pro-social connection, do you think that's been decreased in the past couple of years? For most people. Lisa, I love that. So she's saying that's why I'm still part of SPIN. Senior Professional Industry Network. I've heard of SPIN. Actually, it's a really cool organization. Even though I was retired, see, I need connection. Lisa, I'm 100% with you in that this connection with our peers is so crucial, because we often, but right now we've been forced to social distance, which I think creates emotional distancing, and which I also think tags into what's been a coming trend for us. Before the pandemic, if you looked at the research on, if you're a research fanatic like I am, if you looked at what's the number one cause of that researchers think is going to create burnout in the workplace, I'm going to give you a couple examples. All right. What do you think causes highest rating of burnout in high demand jobs? It could be, we'll say, workload. It could be uncertainty. It could be loneliness, and it could be, let's say, inflation. Workload, uncertainty, loneliness, inflation. If you look at the trends in research, especially that was coming out of the UK right before the pandemic, you're going to see that one of the biggest concerns is loneliness. If you look at what is one of the greatest drivers of reduced motivation, what does the self-determination theory of motivation say is the number one or one of the top 3 ways to crush someone's intrinsic internal motivation? And I'm telling you what it is. This is my words. They phrase it differently, but this is, I think, a better way to say it. One of the primary causes of depression, of burnout, of unhappiness in a job, and unhappiness in life is to feel like you're going it alone. So how often do you feel like you're going it alone? That's a really important question before the pandemic, but especially now. Okay. So what I'm suggesting is, what the research tells us is that the amount of connection that you have with your peers, mentors, your professional social connections is one of the best buffers against the stresses of uncertainty, of depressive symptoms. It's just so crucial right now. But then you've also got, but Andy, let's do a little hangman here, see if you can guess it. There's a certain class of people I'm going to have to do that much smaller. Let's do it like this. There's a certain type of people. All right. What do you think that is? A certain type of people who are going to say, but Andy, listen, the thing is, you talk about this connection with other people. Well, honestly, Andy, I don't like people that much. And so that's going to be our intro. Berts. Yes, actually, perfect, Lisa. Excellent. It's our intro VERT, our introverts. They're going to think, Andy, this pandemic, this social distancing, this work from home, it's been a godsend for me. And I believe you to a point, because most people don't know this, but whenever I do personality profile tests, I actually score very high on the introvert side of the scales. And they say, but you're a professional speaker, and I'm like, that's true, but that's a different type of connection, so I just want to connect. I want to make sure that if you think of yourself as an introvert, I don't want you to poo-poo this idea, because professional social connection is more important now than ever. You don't want to feel like you're going it alone. You need to have connection. But if you're an introvert, you just need to define what quality social connection is. Okay, for me, as a keynote speaker, I'll come in and they'll have a what's it called, a banquet or a party the night before I speak, and they want me to come to that, and I will, because I'm a professional, but I don't want to because I don't know those people. They don't know me. We don't have I don't love small talk. It doesn't recharge me. Right. But after my presentation, if they have a lunch or a party or a banquet, they can't hardly keep me away, because now I'm able to have real conversations with people, deep conversations. I love to have real and deep and meaningful conversations. That's what recharges me as an introvert. And so you have to clarify for you what type of pro-social connection it is. And I'll give you another example. I've been doing the speaking thing for 26 years. And before the pandemic, I did about 60 events a year, and I was on about 130 flight segments a year on average. It was a bunch of travel, right? And I would come home and I would talk with my wife, and over 25 years, she's just got to the point where, as much as she loves me and wants to, she just can't hear another bad travel story. She's just like, she tries, but I can see her eyes glazing over immediately. So I found that I needed to connect with people who know what my life is like, my professional life is like. So I formed a mastermind group with 3 people. We started it as a business mastermind. Like, how can we help each other grow our businesses? And but very quickly it turned into just a pro-social group. We talk about business ideas, what's working for us, and so forth. But it turns out a majority of the time is spent on checking in on each other. How are you doing with your travel? How are you doing with your relationships? How are you doing with your health, your wellness? How's your outlook these days? And it turns out that even as an introvert, I found that really does recharge me, and I need that. And I never really knew it until, October is the busiest month of the year for speakers. So I'm gone all the time, and I'm like, why am I getting crankier and crankier as October goes on? I love to work. I love my job. But I was starting to lose that sense of connection. And so now that I have my supportive wife and my brothers and my friends, now I also have my pro-social group, my peer support group. I also have 2 mentors that I meet with frequently. And I also mentor one other person, so it's like those kinds of connections done right, I think, are the solution to much of the challenges that we face. Lisa, you are an amazing extrovert. Anytime you're around Lisa, you'll see that her positive energy just floods off of her. So she loves being around. Let me do this. Let me show it. So Lisa says, I'm an extrovert. I get energy from being around people. I totally get that. But see, now that she is retired, that's being really hard. And I totally get that too. And how she manages that, one of the ways is that she goes to the gym, just be around people, even if she doesn't connect with them. Yeah, that's helpful, right? That's helpful to get out and be with people, especially as an extrovert. Okay, but for introverts, we just need to be clear on what really recharges us. I got a great story for you. One of my past coaching clients was JB Hunt, the founder of JB Hunt Trucking. And the guy was one of the purest extroverts I've ever met. And the guy he was awesome, man. He built he and his wife built a $1 billion company, and JB had a 7th grade education. So whenever I'm around people like that, I always want to listen to what they have to say, because honestly, I learned more from him than he did from me, I think. And but the key is that while watching him and observing him when he retired, he was like, yeah, I've got a $1 billion. He's retired. He can do whatever he wants. And about 3 weeks later, he got so bored, he bought a little piece of a local water bottling company. And he would drive there and load up the back of it in the morning. He'd drive there and load up the back of his pickup truck with cases of bottled water, and then drive around to local Quick Marts and try to sell them water. Why would a guy worth $1 billion do something like that? It's because he was an extrovert. He got recharged by just chatting up people, selling people stuff. It was just, that's what recharged him. That would not recharge me. That would drain me, right? So what recharges you is the question. So that's a bigger question for another day, but this session is about professional social connection. So I'm going to challenge you, okay? So over the past 3 months, how would you rate yourself? Professional social connection. This over here is low. Let's just say less than once a day. And then let's go over here and do high and do several times a day. Okay, where you put yourself on this graph would determine how high your prosocial connection is, and it also connects to how vulnerable you are to depression-like symptoms, and it also can decrease your overall happiness and enjoyment and willingness to stay in the work that you're doing. It's one of the key factors. Now, it's not obviously the same for everyone, but I just want you to think about, if you were going to put yourself on this continuum, where would you put yourself? You see, before I learned this, I was probably over here off the scale, right? I would have connections with my peers once every, month or more. Okay, but since I learned this, I think I'm still not as high as a lot of the people in the study that were at high prosocial connection, the numbers of connections, but I really feel like I'm much closer to this area. And honestly, I can tell the difference. So here's my to-dos for you. Okay, all right, so let's go back to Lisa. She's got some great comments here. So Lisa, as an extrovert, says, I love to connect with people. She also says that, retirement puts me lower on that scale these days, but connecting with people makes her happy. Yeah, and as an extrovert, we'd all go, well, of course, that makes total sense. And then we've got Ronald's jumping in. Yes, Ronald. He said, I love circles and he requires to be healthy and happy, connecting with people, 5 great people a day. That's really cool. That's really cool, Ronald, because that gives you, first of all, that's a very specific number. And I think that's a reasonable number. And for you to identify that for yourself, that's a wonderful thing. My book is called Change Your Day, Not Your Life. And I'm a big believer in checklists. So I would even encourage you, if you ever start to feel like you're starting to lose that love and feeling about work or your daily life, I would suggest you put a checklist on how many connections you have with great people in a day, and to see if you've dropped that, if that number is dropped. Because when that number drops too low for anyone, even introverts or extroverts, it's going to start having an emotional effect on you, whether you know it or not. It can all be like an undercurrent. So I love that, Ronald. That's excellent. So Lisa, being an extrovert, she would probably thrive at the high end, the high numbers of social connections with her prosocial connection. And Ronald is in that medium to high group too, 5 people a day. That's excellent. Me, I could, introverts, I would probably, if I could do maybe 1 to 3 connections with people a day, I would probably be thriving as well. That's kind of what my guess is at this point in my experimentation with it. But I'm really proud of you guys talking this through and thinking this through. So my closing thought for you on our chat today is this. I want you to think about, number one, how many moments pro-social connection? What's the number? Where would you put yourself? Okay. Number two, if it's low or you would like it to be higher, I want you to come up with 3 things, 3 ways that you could increase the amount of pro-social connection in your life right now, the frequency of it, and also the quality, but the frequency of it. And wherever you're at, I want you to put it in the chat. And I'm going to combine, look, and I'm going to add my ideas to it as well. And just to give you a head start, I'm going to do 2 of them for you. All right. So peers, develop peer support groups. Call them masterminds, call them social groups, call them, whatever you want to do. But reach out and connect with 2 to 3 people and schedule a regular time to connect. Yeah. And this is one of those things where it actually can be helpful virtually. Yeah. All right. Then I want you to ask yourself, do I have mentors? Or can you be a mentor? You'll be shocked about how many people would love you to mentor them, and how many people would be honored to mentor you. I find that all the time. One of my favorite things in my presentations these days is that I'll talk about this key point, right? It's pro-social connection. Then I'll say, sometimes people are bashful about doing this. Raise your hand if you would be willing to join in with people like here we are in this association, that you'd be willing to join in and create a pro-social group. Almost every hand in the house goes up. It shocked me. And then I said, okay, if someone respectfully asked you to mentor them and was careful with your time, would you be willing to mentor them? Bam, hands go up. People want it more than you think. Yeah, so reach out. Okay, so we got Lisa. Yes. All right. So here we go. She says, I recently had someone tell me that it annoyed them when I talk to strangers. And she says that's hard feedback, and she disagrees completely. So, Lisa, you don't have to internalize that kind of feedback. They're talking to you about what their needs are in that situation. And if that situation is not about their needs, it's about your needs, right? And if they don't like it, they can remove themselves from the situation. The fact that you talk to people, it's something that's very healthy and important for you. Now, I understand, though, because my wife drives me insane. She's a very social person. And anytime we leave a basketball game or any social event, or even just Sunday dinner at her family's, I always have to say, whenever she goes, all right, it's time to go, I don't get up, because I know she's on her first round of goodbyes. And then she comes back and goes, get up, we're leaving. I said, okay. And I just wait there so she does her second round of goodbyes. And then sometimes there's even a third round. And I have to walk out to the car. And that's, I'm trying to be more patient in those situations, but because I know that's what she needs. I'm more of like, later, and then I leave. Yeah. So I don't know. You got to be careful and cognizant of what other people, how they feel about it, but you have to fulfill your self-care needs, Lisa. All right. She also says, you don't know if you're making someone else's day by acknowledging them. I can't tell you how important this is. That's one of the crazy things about social media is sometimes a lot of it is junk, but sometimes you come across some really poignant things. And I came across this guy who does TikTok videos, and all he does is he's a gamer. He does online video games. And what he'll do is he'll go online, and one of the things gamers like to do is they get on and they play, and then people can donate money to them if they're doing really good. So he goes and finds gamers that have nobody watching them, have never had a donation, and he donates like $5 or $10 to them. and you should see the reaction on their faces. It's like almost breaking out in tears that someone acknowledged them. And I love those kinds of things really energize me. I'm starting to think, how can I do that? I mean, when I'm speaking and traveling, I try to really acknowledge the good work that the AV people do, that the wait staff does, that the event center leader does. And, in the meeting planning team, like Lisa was on a meeting planning team that hired me. I 100% showed and believe that how grateful I am for the people who work in the background. People don't know how hard that kind of stuff is. So be a person that spreads gratefulness, acknowledgement, and you know that. What is that saying? The world rewards the givers and takes from the takers. So I believe that in my heart. All right, Lisa, I appreciate that quote on good husband behavior. I'm going to screenshot that and send it to my wife. But thank you for attending. As always, put any thoughts, any comments, any questions in the chat area, and I will respond. I will look for it and I will respond. And you can always reach out to me for anything you need. Let me tell you what, I'll just do this. You don't have to go through my website contact form. If you want to chat with me, here it is, straight to me. It'll come straight to my pocket. Andy at andycore.com. Email me. I'd love to hear from you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your participation and your attention. And I'm going to do this every Friday. So I hope to see you back next Friday or the next, whenever it works. But until then, have a great day.